Hello everyone. I'm Michael Naylor, and I am coming in through virtual space located in South Portland, Maine. And I've been doing these interviews for several years now, and just always am delighted at what I learn and what I receive in terms of a deepening of understanding the soul of the person. And you can find me at enneagrammain.com. And most people experience instant enlightenment when they go to that website. It only lasts about 4 minutes, but it's better than nothing. That said, I've got my good friend Seth here today, who's volunteered to navigate and show us the ins and outs of the labyrinthian inner psychological journey of the type 4. That's a lot of words, more than I usually come up with. And I met Seth through a Fathoms interview, and got to experience his delightful spirit. So thanks for being here, and
Thank you.
tell us, let us hear your story, how it all started, and whatever
Well,
comes
my
up.
mom and dad met. Um,
Thank God for that.
yeah, and that's how I got here.
Yep.
Long story short, but yeah. So at least Enneagram story. So you had Seth Abram on recently,
Hmm.
and he and I go back quite a few years. We're both musicians,
Hmm.
and we he he found the Enneagram and then he introduced it to me. And then that's ended up being all that we ever talked about. Went to a few trainings, went
Hmm.
down to uh, Enneagram Atlanta with Nan Henson and Linda Roberts.
Hmm.
And we got certified there. And then I've also been training under Mario Sikora as well, and
Hmm.
just kind of learning all sorts of things,
Hmm.
Enneagram and otherwise, from him. So it's been really great. Really enjoyed the process. So it's been probably about 5 6 years that I've been heavily invested in the Enneagram. So
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
so discovering you were a type 4, like what was that like for you?
It was honestly, I mean, it was so Seth actually gave us like this two-part test, had like 3 paragraphs. So one of those like really ridiculously tiny tests that I would not suggest to anyone ever using, but it nailed me. And it was uh, I don't, you know how some people say like it was really embarrassing or they resisted it, especially fours resist it. I'm like, it hit me, and I'm like, this is fascinating.
Hmm.
um, I actually felt seen. I felt known. I felt understood. And so
Hmm.
I felt invited into figuring out and understanding this more in depth. So since then, I haven't really doubted my type sense. It's yeah. Anyone who spends a short amount of time with me will quickly recognize the four is flaming. So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
that sounds, I had the same experience where I just read about my type once and that was it. It was just
yeah.
nailed it completely. Uh, so tell me about, the what your friends notice when you're in your kind of flaming 4
Mm.
mode. Like what resonates for you?
Maybe we'll start with the positives.
Yeah, do that.
That's going counter to what I normally do. Um, so yeah, yeah, the positives. What I hear from a lot of my friends is the kind of space that I hold for them.
Hmm.
In that I introduce intentionality and beauty, and um, just always trying to cultivate a moment that is rich and full and meaningful. Um, I the some clients that I have, it's very often me just asking a couple questions, and then they're able to articulate something that they haven't articulated before. So I feel like there's an inner sense of um, how to find the way into where normal people, not normal people, some people,
Freudian slip. What are you going to
yeah,
do?
yeah, normal people don't normally go, you know?
There's four ordinary people. I don't
Oh
know.
gosh.
Why were they
It-
created? That's the question.
that must be a terrible existence.
Absolutely. My heart goes out
Yeah,
to them. Well,
yeah.
yeah. So that
So
opening,
yeah,
creating space and
creating space and
quality of
intentional
beauty.
moments of beauty,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, that last moment was quite beautiful about the ordinary. So,
Yeah, you know,
you couldn't
yeah,
help it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
but
what?
yeah, I mean, and then there's just the my closest friends know how intense my emotions can become, and uh, without warning sometimes, I suppose.
Hmm,
Um,
hmm,
and it's very rarely externalized towards anyone necessarily. It's always internalized,
hmm,
and that's when I know I need to call the people that I know I'm safe with
hmm.
and be like, all right, help me get out of myself and stop obsessing and running amok in whatever's happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so, I notice because I am a part of the same tribe, uh,
of not
that,
normal people.
yes, of the not normal, sometimes called special and sometimes
Yeah,
called foolish, uh,
yeah.
but I always am aware of a stream of emotion going through me. It's like it doesn't usually get quiet. Sometimes it does, but it can suddenly dip down into unpredictable darkness. It's like, where did that come from? Or then paint a sort of cloudy, lightning filled experience of the moment. And so it's an interesting mechanism that I've had to learn to navigate and make sense of. What's been
Hmm.
true for you around noticing your emotional waves?
Yeah, it's so just this past week there's I was talking to a friend and they're like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm good and I'm bad. I'm frustrated. I'm grateful. Like it's never one thing. It's always a multiplicity of things, and they're always contradictory. I think that's the nature. I think that's just the nature of being human. I think fours are just a little bit more sensitized to seeing those,
Yeah.
um, and so, I mean, even the other night, I had some trouble falling asleep. And in that half asleep state, I went to some really dark places. There was no precursor to that. It just kind of happened. And thinking about what if I died, and and just kind of whirling around in that space for a while. And as anyone knows, like I'm not at risk at suicide and like nothing like that, right? But it's just something that I've slip into, and it's not pleasurable, but it's also like normal and comfortable in a way, and more of a thought experiment than anything else.
Yeah. 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 Well, so one of the interesting mood thought patterns that I certainly have experienced a bazillion times is envy, the quality
Mm,
of envy. Is that something that's been noticeable for you in your life?
yeah.
Hmm,
So that's something, I mean, you and I have done a few calls together. It's just, it's comforting to know that you can make it through life. Um, to a person of your lovely age and still survive
ancient.
and yeah, ancient. Yeah,
900 years old today.
there it is. um, and the thing that always has stuck out to me is you said the other side of envy is admiration.
Hmm,
And that's been really, really helpful for me. I think so. Being a musician, you can find all my stuff on Spotify, Apple, all those things under my last name, Creekmore. But with music, I think we talked about this actually, was um, sometimes I found myself not listening to music that I enjoyed because it reminded me of the things I was not doing.
Mm.
Um, I'm like, I I could do that. They're doing the thing that's in my head, that I'm
Mm.
hearing in my head. They're doing the thing that I want to be doing, and so I don't listen to that music because it reminds me of the ways in which I'm failing. Right. Um, so so then taking that into a practice of actually listening to it, and letting the again the contradictory multiplicity of emotion arise as I'm listening
Mm.
to it, and
Mm.
maybe maybe I can admire it and it can inform me, and I can yeah, I can appreciate it, and then let that drive me to sit down and do my own stuff. um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so tricky. That's a practice that I work with. And so, envy pops up. It can actually pop up around silly things. Like
Mm,
somebody drives by in a new car that looks kind of flashy, and then I immediately feel like they have a better life and that I've failed, and that I hope they have a crash very soon and destroy that damn car. And
yeah,
so it's just like it can be trite, or it
yeah,
can be somebody who's really. I notice some people who excel at what they do. I'll feel both admiration, and then it will go to envy. Like, well, you're not doing that. But if I
right.
remember, well, the envy is, like you're saying, a signal to me of myself needing to get to work on what I'm called to do, and that usually quiets my envy down a lot. And
Mm,
if I'm not working regularly, that envy bug is just up there, sort of poking me. But
mm,
yeah, it can be very active,
yeah.
as my mentor said, it's probably immortal. So you have to learn how to navigate it, and you're
Hmm.
not going to get rid of it. But it's an
Well,
interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I think along those lines, I was just again, there's a lot of really fresh things that happened this week, but
Mhm.
um, there's the all right, it's time to get down to work, and then there's the overcompensation of that, in which I drive myself into the ground using envy as like a toxic fuel
Oh, oh,
to just push and push and push and push myself.
hmm.
But of course, it's never enough. Like whatever I accomplish that week is never enough, and it's never special enough. It's never noteworthy or valuable, of course. Um, and again, I was having a conversation with a friend this week, and I think it's a combination of just, I mean, I am self-employed, so I'm always in situations in which I'm a little out of sorts. I'm a little like out of my league.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so, which is a good thing, but then it's often I forget I forget what I've done and where I am at, because I'm always in a place of like, I need to get to this next thing. I need to do this next thing. I need to increase this skill. I need to, like,
Yeah.
all these things that I need to be doing, instead of just looking around like, wow, like I just went to the UK for a month and a half because I've built a life where I can do that and work,
Mm.
and have a living like that, and that's amazing. And I have to step back
Yeah.
and be like, all right, wait, we're okay, we're okay.
Well, that's an interesting quirk I experience as a four of, like, all of a sudden, well, I've done nothing. There's nothing, absolutely
Yeah,
nothing. What are you even breathing for? I don't know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like just like an eraser comes across the chalkboard, and I'm looking and I can't remember, or as you said, I write something, and at the end of it, it's like, this is tragically bad, right? And I've learned. I'll show it to my wife, and she'd go, "Oh my God, this is amazing." I said, "Really? Well, instruct me on this, because my inner critic is so good at
Mm,
vanishing any capacity to see value." But yeah, it's a thing, and I
yeah,
have to learn not to let it run me. But
yeah.
it's tricky.
it and on the other side, it's also, I think, a huge superpower. of being able to constantly critique something, because by
Mm-hmm.
the time it makes it to the stage where I'm performing,
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm like, this thing is amazing, and
Yeah.
like, I'm glad you enjoy it, that's great. Or I'm okay, you don't enjoy it, that's fine, I know it's good. So
Yeah.
like, it's gotten
Awesome.
to that point where I'm
Hmm.
happy with it. So like, whew,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
right, you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So as long as you don't get discouraged by, sounds like you use it and you move through it, uh,
most of the time.
and there's always like, on the one hand, oh, this is beautiful, and then the next moment, it's like, oh, not so much.
Hmm.
And then somebody says, that's really awesome. I go, oh, they're just feeling sorry for me.
Hmm.
And, all the whole
They don't
different
have good
rhythms.
taste.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
for you, we talk about envy, and then there's the other thing, we talk about is sort of the capacity for the four to over fantasize about life and reality. Fantasy being, called the fixation, the mental trap of the four, which um, to me is more around the misuse of imagination as opposed to applying it to my creative work. And I remember talking to Don Riso, uh, and he was talking about imagination. And he said, for something like 10 years, I imagined myself becoming a concert pianist,
Hmm.
and I bought a piano. And then after 10 years, my mentor said, have you even learned to play that yet? And he said, no, I have not. He said, well,
Hmm.
you're in your imagination. So, all four, I forced tend to have different versions of that. But I was just wondering what you've experienced.
Yeah, where do I begin? Um, yeah, so much fantasy. And it, on the positive side, it fuels a lot of imagination and a lot of possibility. It fuels a lot of hopefulness. Um,
Hmm.
and so that's the positive side. I mean, um, even the imagination of being self-employed and mobile. That's been a goal for past like 5 years, and I was finally able to make it happen.
Hmm.
Um, but it started off as a fantasy of like, what if I could just pick up and move whenever I wanted to,
Mm.
um, and then making the steps required to get to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything from um, going back to music, right? It's the I always have to. I let my imagination run wild, and I've done it enough to where it's
Hmm.
like, all right, so there's the ideal concept of what I want to happen.
Mm.
Um, what's 10 times less than that?
Yeah.
And can we get to that point? Um,
Yeah.
I I was planning a whole album release uh, concert at like a local theater. I had like talked to a local dance company. I had a bunch of people lined up. It was going to be a magical experience. Like, if everything would have gone as it went in my head, people would have been on the floor crying. Like, it was going to be amazing.
Hmm.
Um, and one of my friends is like, "Hey, I love that you're doing this, but what are you doing this for?
Hmm.
Like, is this just going to be, this is great, like pouring out for the homies, like, or is this going in a larger bucket that you're building towards something?"
Mm.
Um, and I think I realized that, yeah, I was wanting to do this big wondrous one thing, and then I wasn't going to do anything with it. So why put all this effort towards this
Mm.
one big thing if it wasn't actually going to be sustainable and
Mm.
actually building towards something?
Yeah.
Um, and so that was a reality check. And kind of since then, whenever my imagination goes wild, I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Let's see what my creative potentials come up with.
Mm.
But then what's accessible right
Hmm.
now?
Yeah. It's a returning to the practical, like what's doable.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that seems to be the journey, is noticing the stretched out potential, and then like, okay, where's the
Yeah.
steps that allow something to get created from this? And I've noticed in the past that for me, I'd have a vision about, let's say, writing a book, and it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I would start the process of laying down sentences on the page, and I go, this is going to take way too long. I'll be dead by the time I get it. I just cannot do this. So it's like, and I had to learn how to just not get stopped and go forward. So, yeah. So, when you think of your journey as a four, what have been some of the highs and lows that sort of stand out to you? If
I've never been asked that question. Well, lows are just perpetual, so I'm not sure. Um, no, let's see. I think there's a moment in my life. I won't go into the entire story, but where the fundamental reality of on which I stood was taken from me, and that was both terrible, traumatic, but it really fueled me taking ownership of my life. It was both some of the darkest times of my life, and also realizing what I had capacity for. I realized that I could handle a lot of what was happening, and that my gifts of going deep, of being comfortable with darkness and uncertainty and contradiction, that those all of a sudden became leverage points in which I could find a new platform for me to stand on at a new layer of depth. And then from that's when my morning routine, my practices, everything started to become more consistent, because I realized these crutches that I've been using are now cumbersome. And now I have to trust my own 2 feet. So I need to strengthen my legs. So everything from doing uncomfortable cold exposure and waking up and meditating and doing breath work and working out and routining my week. I don't even know if that's a word, but
that's a great word. I like that.
yeah. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's hard for me to say highs and lows when it comes to fourness. I mean, sure, I've had highs and lows in my life. Like sometimes death happens, sometimes I have really amazing moments. But I guess again, it's always like they're always both present in every moment for me, both deep
Yeah,
sadness and ecstasy at the same
yeah,
time.
yeah. That's a great. That's a great seeing and acknowledging. It seems like the light and the dark are just like, it's like a neutral day. It's like, what is that? It's like, if it's
If
neutral, that's
only.
really dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that extremes or just the polarities are always there and abiding within me. So when someone says, "How are you doing today?" I say, "It is a great mystery." And
Yeah.
that's about the best I can give you right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So last year I had a few people die in my life. A lot of different things that caused a lot of many layers of grief. And at some point when people ask, how you doing? I'm like, pfft. And I just started saying, I'm holding many things sufficiently.
Yeah,
That's all I can give you. Like, I'm
yeah,
not going to say good. I'm not going to say bad. It's just, I'm fine, but I'm not fine.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it seems like one of the archetypes for a number of fours is this having endured, maybe a quality of tragedy as a little one and periodic throughout their life, and then being challenged to transform that into something that is uh, what did they say? Turning, getting lemons and creating lemonade, but it goes a lot deeper than that. But a sense of like one of the things that Don and Russ used to talk about is that fours have a natural intuitive sense of what the hidden suffering is in the family. And it's like they see it, like with spotlights, and other kids might be doing other things, but there's a way that they really see it and feel it and maybe feel called to heal it, save the family from their suffering. I know that's certainly one of my interesting agendas. And so sort of, comfortable with the darkness because I watch it every day and I see the nuances of suffering. What has been true for you? Is that something as a little guy that you were aware of suffering, or is that something that came later?
I'm not even sure how I would describe it. Um, my mom always said that I was one of the most sensitive children she's ever met. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
like really compassionate, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a bit of a awkward outcast to
Mm-hmm.
begin with,
Mm-hmm.
but um, I also was extremely attuned to those that were being left out or not being seen.
Yeah.
Um, and I often attracted the weirdos and the awkward ones. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, I'm not gonna make you feel bad about who you are.
Yeah.
So in that way, as I recognize the suffering
Yeah.
of being not normal.
Mm.
Um, and then I learned how to play guitar, and I became the cool one, right?
Yeah.
And that was a weird journey of going from a nobody, a weird homeschooled quiet kid,
Mm-hmm.
to all of a sudden singing and playing guitar solos on stage,
Mm.
right? And definitely inflated an inflated identity
Mm-hmm.
um, for a while, and
Mm.
um, then that got pulled from me on some level, but but
Mm.
I think I just realized that acceptance that I'd been longing for isn't all that great
Mm-hmm.
because it's admired but never known.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's the it's the weirdos, right, that I had in my life that we were friends. Like
Yeah.
I was actually known by them and not just admired by all the cool kids that I wanted to be admired by.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's a beautiful story. Thank you for that.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. My mother said the same thing. Well, you're really sensitive. You're actually maybe too sensitive. I said, well,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I cry at
Well,
the smallest thing, and what can I say?
yeah.
Yeah. But
I think I remember having a huge anger issue when I was younger.
mhm.
Um, yeah, lots of crying for sure. But I actually remember the moment in which I learned how to swallow my anger,
Hmm.
and I was really proud of myself at the time. um,
Hmm.
and and I think that was kind of the beginning of, I guess, if we're talking back to the lows and high points, right? That was a moment I remember in which I'm like, oh, being emotional is not okay, and I need to figure out how to hide these things
Yeah. Yeah.
because they get in my way of being accepted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then it's been a slow emerging of uh, learning how to externalize my emotions again.
Yeah.
I think that's a common misconception that all fours are blubbery, like romantics who are just express it. No, I'm very very subdued actually,
Yeah.
um, and I keep a lot of it inside.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly. I was, I think, one of the quietest kids in all my classes
Mm-hmm.
uh, and really suppressed a lot. I just and it wasn't until I discovered primal therapy, which I think was invented for type fours, of just really deep grieving, screaming, yelling,
Hmm.
similar to the Hoffman process today. But yeah, it really kept a lot in, and so I think they're I'm super shy
Hmm.
until I started to come out and be more available. But I still can be pretty darn shy if I'm
Oh.
with new people. It's like I don't know about these humans. I'm not really attracted to them today. I'm going home.
Yes.
So
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think music really did help because it gave me so I would in Mario Sikора's language, awareness to action, right? A navigator, so social.
Hmm.
So I was immediately given a role inside of a group, and that gave me something I could lean on,
Hmm.
something to have. What am I relative to you? And that fuels some superiority and inferiority on some level.
Sure.
But I think that's what I've found is like as I found new roles to inhabit, I was able
Hmm.
to be more confident in my approach.
Yep.
Um, and then as I've gotten older, I'm like these roles have been really helpful to give me those legs up to like find my inner confidence of I'm just fine as I am. I don't need a role. But
Yeah.
um, so finding how to step into my own self as
Mm-hmm.
the role of me instead
Mm-hmm.
of the projection that I'm putting out into the world of who I want them to think I am.
Well, I think that probably takes 5 or 6 lifetimes. So you're doing
Okay,
great.
great.
Slow work, but just to cheer you up. I don't know,
That's to be
but I know
expected.
when I was a little kid, because I was very very shy and not very verbal. I thought a lot of things, but
Yeah.
I was really good at sports where I
Hmm.
didn't have to be verbal, but I was really good at it, so I got a lot of attention, and so I felt like, well, I've got a place here because everybody wants me to be on their team or to be the team leader. And normally I would not talk to any of you, but since we're playing baseball, let's play baseball or let's play basketball. And just I was really grateful that I had that natural gift because it gave me a place somewhere in the
Hmm.
world that I could interact with other kids. And
Yeah.
so that whole legs up thing, I'm really grateful that I had something because uh, other than that, I was, mostly contemplated whether God was condemning me to hell forever or not. It was going to be a close call. In the Catholic Church, they have
Yeah.
strict,
Yeah.
strict standards there, right?
Sure.
So for you, I'm curious about, what are the things that have helped you sort of, relax some of the suffering or come forward? I know your
Hmm.
music has, and but are there
That more
particular?
adds to the suffering, but yeah.
That's right. And
Yeah,
it's sort of a double-edged sword, I
it
imagine.
is.
Yeah, but in terms of
Yeah,
just, I know you mentioned you have practices in the morning. You do
mm,
meditation, and did I hear you say that you get in ice water in the morning before you
I do.
start?
I do.
You do, and you have
Yeah,
a big tub or something, or
yeah,
what?
yeah. So it's I learned about Wim Hof like several years ago, before he kind of blew up, um, and that's I started. I live up north, as do you, but I live near Lake Michigan, and so we get really cold temperatures,
Mm.
and so I've always had an affinity towards the cold. Like I'd
Mm.
much rather be cold than hot.
Oh.
Um,
Mm.
and so just through like his breath work and stuff, I would go outside barefoot, no shirt, like in the snow, and just focus on the sensation
Mm.
and try to divorce the story from the sensation.
Mm.
Like the story
Awesome.
being, I want to be warm. This is too cold. This hurts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
just like, so what does being cold feel like
Mm-hmm.
sensationally? And I think it's through that and putting my body in more extreme situations like that, that I started to recognize, like, oh, emotions are just sensations too,
Mm,
and
awesome.
can I apply that? So building my body resilience to cold also gave my body resilience to the sensation of emotion.
Mm, awesome.
And so yeah, my morning routine is to get up. Oftentimes I'll go outside and meditate, do the Wim Hof breath work,
Hmm.
and then immediately from there I'll go into the cold plunge or cold shower depending on where I'm at.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and minimum effective dose is 12 minutes a week. So I'm like, all
Oh,
right, cool. I'll do 3 minutes, 4 days, and we'll just call it good. But it's
that's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
it's amazing. It's never easy. It's never easy. I know some people are like get addicted to it and are excited to get into it. I'm like, it's never easy for me.
Yeah.
I get into it, and it's just stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. Um,
Yeah.
and then after cold plunge, I go lift or do some sort of body weight workout, something like
Awesome.
that.
Yeah.
Um, and then on to my day. So, and then in the evenings, oftentimes I'll take a walk around sunset. Um, and depending on my state of mind, sometimes I'll do a meditation, sometimes listen to music, something like that. And contemplate my death as the sun goes down.
Well, at that rate, maybe you only have a couple lifetimes left to do.
Yeah,
So
right.
you're knocking off a lot of yardage there. That's great.
That's great. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
no, it's literally like, wow. So that was another day.
Mhm.
And there's gonna be a time where I'm not gonna have another day. And it's
Yeah.
something I try to do it morning, like in my meditation and when on my sunset walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's really kind of the certainly, in the Gurdjieff work, that's, a prime meditation is that,
Mm.
uh, this could be the day, this could be your last day, and death is coming. Along with it are the suggestions to take ice cold showers, which
Yeah.
I have not grown an affinity with it yet. I
Really?
get in there for 30 seconds, I'm going, oh my God, and I start turning it down to lukewarm. I say, this
Yeah.
counts, this counts.
This counts.
But yeah, those are really powerful practices, and yeah. So, and lifting weights, I've haven't heard too many type fours who really, like to lift weights or get in and really work their body. But that's certainly something that is a must for me if I want to stay grounded and less insane and drifting
Yeah.
off into the ozone of inexplicable suffering. Getting in the body really brings me down.
Honestly. Well, and I think it started off as an insecurity, as a body insecurity, right?
Hmm. Yeah, me
And I
too.
would just go balls to the walls and just like hammer my body, like punishing myself for not being where I want to be. And then it's like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. Like, that's not helping. And then I discovered a workout routine that was sustainable for me,
Awesome.
that was like effective, and I just had to learn to trust the process. Like it was really well backed by science, all these sort of things. I'm like, all right, I don't feel like I did enough today, but I'm
Hmm.
going to trust the process. And I've been doing that same routine for the past, I don't know, 5 years, something like that.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I'm like steadily increasing in weight, and it's at this point, it's not. Sometimes it's hard to get out there. Most of the time, it's not,
Yeah.
um, because it's so ingrained into my normal routine, and I know I enjoy it. I enjoy how it makes me feel. And then sometimes I go out when I'm really emotional as well, and I just like I put all the emotion into the bar, and
Hmm.
and then like sometimes I'll just have to stop and like break down crying. Like
Hmm.
it's just
Yeah.
like it brings up a lot.
Mm.
So it's the one place where I feel I'm allowed to bring all my intensity.
Yeah, I hear you. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, was there a particular weight practice guide person, Arnold Schwarzenegger, somebody who had a program, or is it something that you learned on your own that was
Yeah.
sustainable? And
So there's it's a combination of a few different people. It kind of it started off with friends, honestly,
mm-hmm,
who um, I enjoyed being around, and we started lifting together.
awesome.
And then they turned me on to these people to this podcast called Mind Pump. Um, they're they're really smart in the fitness area.
Oh,
They're kind of broy and a little. I don't agree with everything that they believe and think.
mm-hmm.
So just clarifying there, if
Sure,
anyone
sure,
goes and
sure.
listens to it, like it's yeah, but it's great fitness advice most of the time.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's literally a full body lift 2 to 3 days a week, and
Mm-hmm.
then on the off days you're doing 1 to 3 mini they call them trigger sessions. So it's
Hmm.
like I just did a little bit before we got on here. I did like 3 sets of squats, uh, push-ups, and like
Mm-hmm.
crunches. And
Yeah.
it's just like getting the blood back into the muscles, getting
Yeah.
that muscle building signal back up, and it's sustainable.
Yeah.
And yeah, then there's Huberman. He's blown up right now on the interwebs, but
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Huberman, Stanford professor, and he's gives really practical advice on like the whole sunset walk, helps with your circadian rhythm, getting you to sleep, all those sort of things. So
Yeah.
simple and practical.
And does he also, well, so that this, I'm laughing to myself because I remember when I started lifting weights, one of the primary thoughts is this is not spiritual. Wanting to have a strong body, that's kind of vain. Or,
Mm.
well, yeah, my inner critic, my spiritual inner critic, it's like, well, do you see anybody out there on a spiritual path that looks like they're in shape? Well, frankly, I don't.
Yeah.
It's very few. So I said, so I started doing it and I felt so good. And I really felt like my heart opened up more and my aliveness came online.
Mm.
And it really became, really, it's like a prayer, it's medicine. And
Mm.
so it's just great to hear another fellow journeyer who has that
Yeah.
passion and love.
Shows you your capacity.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the teachers I worked with was a Zen teacher. He said, in his trainings, everybody had to work out an hour a day. He
Mm.
said, if you don't get your body in good shape, your ability to hold and embody higher states of essence will not be available. You won't be able to rest in it, savor it, go through the dark passages. That you got to have a body that's awake. And I thought, okay, I'm sold. I guess I have permission now. So, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
It gives you, yeah, the capacity. It gives you the ability to hold the tension and contradiction and the hard things for longer.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I was just, me and my team, Fathoms, were out in San Francisco doing the IEA conference. We were the official podcasting team of the conference,
Oh,
and
awesome.
super fun. But it
Mm-hmm.
was one of the most intense things I've done in a really long time.
Mm.
It was We recorded something like 20 episodes in 3 days,
Wow.
and just and I was like, I don't, my body may break down during this. I don't know. But I was like so proud of my body for like, it held up and it rose to the
Mm.
challenge every
Mm.
single time. And
Mm.
I was tired, but I
Mm.
had enough capacity. I had built enough resilience within myself to be able to stay focused, to stay clear, to stay
Mm. Yeah.
properly emotional. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
non-emotional, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
just communicating clearly, all the things, right? It was beautiful, it was smooth. I paid for it afterwards, like I was spent.
I bet. Yeah.
But yeah, that's, I was just really like, wow, I'm really glad for all the work I've done prior to be able to handle
Absolutely.
something like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's been my experience too. Uh, Well, awesome. Well, so great stuff. So I'm wondering if there's anything in particular about your four journeys that we haven't touched on that you would like to throw in or add.
I think it's always a really hard question for me. I think the thing that I am obsessed with wrestling with right now, um, that I think is tied to my life's work, whatever that means,
Mhm,
um, is how do we experience belonging in everyday life, in regardless of, without needing external validation for that
mhm,
value and belonging.
mhm,
Um, how do we deal with the inherent contradiction of what it is to be alive? If everything is always contradictory, um, and so how do we make that a feature? How do we make that into something that is, um, the driving force, instead of always trying to resolve the contradiction,
mhm,
and making ourselves feel at peace again, but that's not actually living into life. So I guess I don't know if this is answering your question, but I think that's the thing right now that my four experience is trying
mhm,
to dig into, is what does it mean to belong, just belong,
mhm,
and, how do I teach other people to experience the I've never been more happy and more at peace in my life.
mhm,
Um, and it's not because everything's okay. It's not because I have all the answers. It's not because of anything that, um, makes sense, honestly.
mhm,
But I'm able to hold many things sufficiently,
mhm,
and and I think that's something that I think fours have the capacity to get to, maybe quicker than others. I don't know that for sure, but, um, it's at least predisposed
mhm.
to wanting and being able to find that state of acceptance.
Well, it's a great Zen koan, I'll tell you that,
Mm.
and certainly, you know, many layered. And the short answer is mescaline. The long
Yeah.
answer is don't quote me.
Yeah, yeah. It's just going on YouTube. Don't matter.
Yeah, and then psilocybin. But other than that,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But see, to me, that whole again, this is just my own little tiny venture here, but that it seems like there's that sense of belonging, like you pointed out. It's like it's not something external that fills it. It might create a sense of it for a moment, and then all external things just eventually get empty. It's like, oh, that doesn't even give me a buzz. I don't know what this is all about.
Right.
But there seems like there's something over time, as I've labored away, um, that has sort of grown internally, a sense of. And again, words are so sloppy, but it's like a quality of communion with myself. There's a communion, whatever that means, and that when I'm in that place, I feel it with other people. I feel a quality of unity with them, and it's fragile, but I notice it, and it's like this feels deeply correct for this person Michael in the moment. So, but anyway, only a four could pose quite a complicated, deep question and inquiry. Okay, guys, this is going to take about 10 lifetimes, but Seth is burning through things, and you just
I'm
stay on his
I'm
trail.
trying.
You'll be through the door in 2 years. It's great.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to go through the door.
Well, it will just suck you through. That's just how it
All
works.
right, all right, all right.
But So yeah, I'm wondering if you have any words for the younger Seth, a young four, and let's say you're raising a little guy who's a type four, which
Hmm.
the universe being serendipitous, maybe one day there you go, oh, I've got a type
Or
four.
cruel, you know. Um,
It's always both, right?
yeah.
We're going to kill you and enlighten you at the same time. So, yeah, but do you have anything
Yeah.
that comes to mind for you that maybe you needed or?
Yeah, I think the only thing um, would be something along the lines of instilling confidence in myself
Mm,
and that nothing in me is bad.
yeah.
That everything is um, everything has another side.
Mm,
So yeah, maybe you're feeling really envious right now.
mm,
Um, but what is that envy doing? I mean, it's naming something that you value, something that you think is a part of how you want to express yourself in this world.
mm, mhm,
Um, or uh, maybe it's a um, the quirkiness of how I speak or how I think doesn't need to be like ostracizing um,
mhm,
towards others or to myself. It's actually it's a deep invitation to it's an advantage.
mm,
Um, so how lean into the things that are weird, lean into the things that um, don't feel normal,
mhm,
um,
mhm,
and you have the capacity to translate them, to transmute them to the surface,
mm.
to where they can become accessible. Um, and yeah.
Well, I can see a type 4 parenting book coming through you, so be ready to
Oh,
receive it.
oh boy. I feel like I need to have a kid first before I write a parenting book, but
Yeah, yeah, well, that will help, or borrow
yeah,
somebody's.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's that. I think that's called kidnapping, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, well, gosh, just to really appreciate your sensitivity, your depth, the way you ponder questions and really, bring a kind of delicate attention to them, which is really beautiful.
hmm.
And just, yeah, just good to be with your beautiful soul for this hour. And it certainly allowed me to be insane and crazy. So that cheers
Yeah.
me up. But
Thank you, Michael. No,
yeah,
I
just,
really appreciate you, and I joke about it, but it really is like how knowing that I have an older four that I can contact if I need to and be like, "Am I crazy? Is this all a joke? Okay, it is a joke. Cool. How do we laugh about the joke?"
yeah, yeah. How do we navigate it?
And so I really just appreciate you
Mm,
having done all your work,
no.
so I have access to you.
Well, you're a beautiful gift to us. So look forward. We'll have to do a part two because I think we could do like a whole ten session series for on fours if you ever consider
Let's
it.
do it.
Yeah, that would be
Absolutely.
quite delightful. So yeah, to send you lots of love
Thank you, Michael.
and I will shut off. I don't know if this Zoom person has a name. Uh, it's not Alexa, but she says you're done now. So I'm gonna I'm gonna bring her in.